Hello there everyone and welcome to a new review on the channel. And today we're going to be looking at something relatively new and one that hasn't gotten many reviews out there, and that is Single-Handed by Geraint, Clarke and Illusionist. A very interesting and a very good effect. Even though there are some similar effects out there, which I'm going to get into, this one stands out because of its simplicity and its examinability. So I can't wait to talk more about it. Let's roll the intro and deep dive into Single-Handed. Perfect, so you decide to stick around, which means you want to learn more about Single-Handed. So what is Single-Handed? Single-Handed is an effect where a freely chosen and signed card, you say that you're going to find it with just one hand, so one hand goes behind your back, you do all your spiel, and then at the end you say, look, I think this is the card, you place it in their hand, they say what, you tell them take a look, it's of course not going to be their card, and then you do the classic, magician in trouble thing, you say, but I didn't tell you which hand. And when you turn around, in your hand that's been in your back the entire time is their card, okay? Now this effect is very similar to the effect by Max Maven that has come out a few years ago, and even more so years ago when it was originally published in Kayfabe. It has the same type of presentation, but it's completely different in method. Now, I won't be able to perform Single-Handed for you because the main things where Single-Handed's method takes place is offbeats. And the issue is, since I don't have a spectator here, you will see the offbeats and you will see the entire method. But I can do a small, explanation. Is you take out the deck from your box, you would hand it out to the spectator, they would shuffle it. You then say, look, we're gonna do a trick with just one hand. So one hand goes behind my back. So we're gonna take this one. You say, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna cut the card. So you do a Charlier cut. You say, you're just gonna say stop. They say stop here. You turn over the top card. You show it to them. You turn it back over. You do a Charlier cut and you say, look, now take the deck and shuffle your card in. Of course, the card can even be signed. Then they give you back. You take the deck, you give it a few shuffles and say, look, I'm gonna try and find it with just one hand. You say, place your hand flat. You place the card in their hand and then you tell them turn over. It won't be the card, and then behind your back, you're going to turn over. You're going to have their card signed behind your back. Now, as I said, I would have loved to perform it for you, but because of how this works, the camera would have caught everything. But we'll dissect everything that you get and everything that is Single-Handed right now. So where do you buy this? How much does it cost? And what do you get? So you can buy this exclusively from illusionist.com. It will set you back two prices. It will either set you back 25 USD for just the download version. That means that this does use a gimmick deck, but it is a deck that a lot of you may already own and probably already do own. I even have a few of them, but I decided to purchase it, to have one specifically just for Single-Handed and use my other ones for my other effects. So so you probably have one of these at home. So if you want, you can just buy the download version. And if ever, when you do your next order from your favorite magic shop, you can buy one with that. Or they also give you for $34.99 a version that comes in this box with an actual deck ready to go. And the deck that they give you is very well made, very good quality. It does the job perfectly. So those are the two purchase options that you have. So 25 for the download or 35 for the download plus the gimmick deck. And what you get with your purchase, if you just get the download, you're just going to get the download. If you buy the one with the gimmick deck, you're going to get the gimmick deck. And in the download, which spans close to around an hour and a half, you're going to get Geraint Clarke that's going to go over everything that you need to know. He's going to go over a ton of ways to do it, easy ways, hard ways. He's going to teach you ways to do it with a signed card, non-signed card, impossible ways that use an extra gimmick, and he's going to teach you a ton of methods to do it. But personally, just the main one that I told you, to me, is my favorite. I think it's the most direct, the easiest one to do, and the most pleasurable for you and your spectators, because the offbeat happens in the best possible moment, so you can do everything that you need to do in order to get the trick to work. And if you want me to answer this, because I know a lot of people have been asking this, do you have to throw a card in the air and have it fall on the ground for the effect to work? Do you need, to always hand the spectator the wrong card, etc.? Most of the time, yes, for how the method works. but there are some variations that he teaches you that use a few extra stuff that will not need that to happen. But in those variations, the cards cannot be signed, whereas in the other variations, the card can be signed. Okay? So now let's talk about difficulty. So how difficult is this effect to perform? The effect in itself is relatively easy to perform. However, you will need to know how to do a Charlier cut. Because you will only be performing with one hand, it is advised for you to know how to do a Charlier cut to be able to cut the deck during the routine with just one hand. And it's vital for the way that the method works. Now, of course, you can also do the single hand thing where you put your hand behind your back later on in the routine, but I think it's better to start with your hand behind your back and know how to do a Charlier cut so that you can do it like that. Now, that's the simple way. If you want to be more fancy, you can, if you know how to do top shots and stuff like that with just one hand, or like big flourishes with just one hand, then that's going to add to your advantage. But with just a Charlier cut, you'd be able to do the routine. Except for that, almost all of the moves are easy, all of the moves are self-explanatory, and the routine is pretty simple. But I do think that if you do not know how to do a Charlier cut, you'll have to learn that before purchasing this effect. Now let's move on to practicality. So how practical is this effect? The effect is very practical because this is not one of those gimmick decks that can only do one thing. So for example, after you do this routine, you can do another routine and another routine and another routine and another routine. You can essentially use this as your normal gigging deck for a specific gig. You're not obliged to just have this for single-handed. So if you have your normal deck, you can add this to your repertoire and you can do single-handed with it, but also a ton of other effects. And with this, you can also do your classic effects. As I said, it can work as your normal deck. So you can do ambitious cards, cards to number, triumphs, whatever you want to do, you can do with this deck as well. So practicality wise, technically you can just be carrying around this deck and you'll be good to go. In terms of reset, the reset of this is pretty much instant. So when the routine ends, it is reset. In terms of examinability, as I said, the spectator shuffles, they can inspect it. It is 100% good with that. There's no specific gimmicks tied to the deck, so that is fine in that regard. In terms of table space, you do not need a table for this whatsoever. You can do this standing up in the hands without any issues. And in terms of angles, it is a 180 trick, so it's not something that you can do 360, definitely not. So it is, everyone has to be in front of you. Obviously, no one can be behind you when you have your hand behind your back. So you do have to keep that in mind. Now let's move on to where do you perform. So where would you perform single-handed? Single-handed is something that will work perfectly well for any strolling environment where you perform cards, card magic, anything like that. Single-handed will be perfect for you and will deliver to you on all cylinders. But you can also use this in parlor or corporate events, or if you do, smaller gatherings type parlor performances, a la Magic Castle. Of course, this will suit well. And if you're someone that does card magic on stage, this effect is going to work on stage incredibly well as well. So having said all of this, what are the positives and negatives of single-handed? So first, as always, let's start out with the negatives. So one of the negatives of single-handed is that the angles are just 180. So this is not something where people will have to can be behind you for how the method works. Additionally, if you want to do this with the signed card, you will need to do the step in the routine where you do a miscall or a fake call or a fake prediction or a fake reveal. That will need to happen in order for you to get the best moment in order for you to achieve the method. So keep that in mind. So if you're not a fan of, having something wrong or anything like that, which I think no magician is against that because we all do it. But if you're someone that always likes to have things head on, then maybe that's going to be a bit of a problem. But even then, I think it flows well because of how it's presented and where it's put in the routine. But I do know some people may worry about that. So keep that in mind. So now let's go into the positives. One, the tutorial is very good. The method is clever. It's nice that the deck can also achieve a ton of other effects. It's easy to carry around, easy to do, practical, it's examinable, it's inspectable. You don't need to carry on multiple decks, you can just use one. You can perform it pretty much anywhere, and it's a very fun routine as well with a fun presentational hook and a fun climax. So having said all of this, would I recommend single-handed and what do I give it out of 10? Yes, I do recommend single-handed. If you do card magic, I think that you will love this effect. And as I said, you probably already own one of these decks. So if you want, take the gamble, take just the download, and then if ever you need to purchase a deck, you can find it at any of your local magic stores without any issues whatsoever. I think that you will love this effect. I think that you're going to be performing it because it is very strong. And yeah, I can't commend it enough. It is very, very good. And that's all I have to say about single-handed. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. If you have any additional questions, leave them down below or comments. I read all of them, even though I don't answer all of them, I do read them. So feel free to ask anything. And with that said, have a great one and see you in my next review. Bye-bye.